Hello there. I'm Zara Sethna, host of the Collapse Life podcast, a thinking person's guide to civilization and demise. Today, I'm joined by my co founder, Stephen, and we have a very special guest who needs no introduction. He's irascible, he's talented, he's opinionated, and all of us here at Collapse Life are honored and humbled to call him our friend, none other than William Banzai 7. Bill, welcome back to the virtual studio for this Thanksgiving special.
Hi, Zara and Stephen. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. I'm in a good mood. I don't have to
Good.
tell you why.
Well,
Nice
it's
to
a
see you.
thrill to have you back with us. And it's just a couple weeks after the historic elections. And here at Collapse Life, over the last few days and weeks, we've been talking a lot, and we've been talking with you a lot about the Uniparty and the dangers of binary thinking. And so I'm hoping that we'll get into some of those subjects. But I think we need to start just by setting the scene with this tremendous Trump wave that we all just experienced.
Okay. Anybody who reads Zero Hedge regularly knows that now I'm posting this picture multiple times because I happen to like the job I did. I spent a lot of time, not a lot of time, but for me, yes, carefully getting this picture to look like a picture that someone wants to have. I don't know why I did that. Sorry. Hanging on the wall. Hold on. Just bear with me. Okay. This is startling what happened. Okay. We were all waiting with bated breath to see what was actually going to happen. And right up until the very end, people were saying there's going to be a steal where let's prepare ourselves and everybody, it was real suspense. And suddenly a lot of things happened that made me and I think many millions of people feel good. And what is that? Well, feeling good to be an American again. Okay. Because everything worked. Well, I can't, it's, by the way, we're still in November. There are still many other things that still need to work. We know that. But basically, we got past that first hurdle. There's been plenty of analysis why, but I'll just tell you what I felt was sweet. We're looking at the map, and one by one, those blue wall states flipped. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it happening before the tally started. Okay. When the Somalis in Minnesota get together, and I listened to that very carefully because I was very interested, there was a room, they're all standing on the stage and they're taking turns at the microphone. And I'm saying, okay, these people aren't all completely in unison. There are some people who are slightly skeptical, but I'm listening to what they're saying. They're very intelligent. They get it.
Yeah.
It's not that when I say they get it, I don't mean there's any issue about them being smart. I mean, they understood what it was all about. They were talking. I was just very happy to see that. Okay, because a lot of times people would wonder, well, we have these people who come into the country. I was wondering, people who more recently come into the country and their kids get exposed to an educational system, which really is a propaganda bureaucracy now, and how, and I'm listening to them talking about freedom of speech. And of course, economics is a big issue, but there were some of them there who really understood what was at risk and yeah, at stake. And I always thought to myself, and it turns out that I was right about it. I'm not a genius in this regard, but people who come to the United States for whatever you want to call it, asylum, political, refuge or whatever, they're running away from a place where things are not perfect. They're running, they're not all just running away for economic reasons. And they, people who come from Venezuela or Cuba, they understand. And if all of us, they come for that reason. And if all of a sudden someone's trying to shove it down their throat again, it's human nature, you're just going to say, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then you load the economic issues on top of it. And because how do people who are immigrants get started on the ladder in our country? Small businesses. Yeah. You can, we don't even have to go over the list of different ethnicities, because in New York City, it's fun to watch. It's like how did the Koreans start their way up the ladder? They ran all the local grocery shops that no one was interested in doing, right? Or, the people from South Asia who latched onto the taxis. It's all, but it's all small businesses, and everybody who's involved in small business feels the burden.
Yeah.
The burden has just become unbearable. So then, who's next? The Arabs in Michigan. Okay? We know that, right? They endorsed Trump. That's amazing, because everybody says that he's, now we're watching, or reading online all this stuff about, Mrs. Sheldon Adelson and Zionism and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But you see, they concluded that he's our best alternative for finding a way out of what's going on in the Middle East. And I agree with them. They're absolutely right. And people are saying, well, now what are people, it's like every time someone says to me, in the comments under my pictures on Zero Hedge or all these, I see a lot of different people who are traveling. And by the way, they're all in a good mood. All the travelers or visitors that, from the US that I've been discussing this with, a lot of people are in a good mood. So we're watching online now where somebody is trying to disparage people any which way they can, because they're just generally not happy. Okay?
Well, leftists in general aren't happy.
It's not just them. General. Oh wait, I forget the leftists. I'm talking about the deep state. I'm talking about people who have an economic stake and feel threatened now. They, and of course, in the case of the Middle East, it's a little bit more complicated. It's not just the war machine, but it's, and they're looking for every little angle. They're looking at everybody under a magnifying glass. If they're happy to wave you through, okay, but what do? They look for other people who they're really not happy about, and they're nitpicking. Nitpicking make it seems like that every issue is a nitpicked issue. That's not true. There's sometimes it's like any other process where you're vetting people and you have to ask questions. But this is all they got now. They're trying to ding. We see the playing field early in the game now, right? We're still in November. It's like unbelievable. Within 2 weeks after the election, all of a sudden we see the main players are out in the open. So that means that they got to take now weeks of shit in the news, right? That's what they're doing. They're dredging. They're trying different ways. They're trying to find as much as they can on everybody they hate. Okay? Mr. Musk, he's not an appointee. Okay? He doesn't have to be approved by the Senate, which is itself a rather interesting development, but it's creative. But they're throwing mud at him. That's what they do. They throw, they're desperate. It's just they never thought that they would wind up in this situation. Okay. And on today in Zero Hedge, there's somebody's got an article, and then they put a picture of a bulldozer going into Washington D.C., and now they're going to see something they never saw before, which is actually very, very true. We have not seen that in our lifetime.
Yeah, that was a repost from
what is it?
El gato malo.
We haven't seen real change. But really, the main point is suddenly these people who are so incompetent, okay, and really are incapable of getting things done, are being faced by people who are geniuses and got lots of things done and know how to get things done. Whoa, they must be in a panic. That's not going to make them look very good, is it? Right?
But do you not think that the deep state sort of allowed the two candidates to be the choice that we had? I mean, I feel like that they had to be approved, and that they'll allow some semblance of change to happen to make it look like you got what you voted for.
I don't believe
You really
anybody.
think that we're going to have a clearing out?
I don't know whether we're going to have a clearing out. That remains to be seen, okay? Because there are a lot of people who are going to resist that every which way they can, just like last time. But this time the difference is he's more prepared, okay? First time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. There's not going to be shame on me. This time, he's got an A-team working with him. Okay. These are very smart people. Okay. And there's still going to be a battle. It's not going to be easy for them. But we don't have to dive down into the rabbit hole of who's been pulling the strings for the last 3 years, or 3 terms or whatever. Who's behind the curtain. We don't have to we know this, whether it's one person behind that curtain, it's not. Okay, there are a whole bunch of
no, but Bill, I think it's important. It's important to recognize that there is a curtain. There is a curtain, and there are levers being pulled. And I think it's really important, if you want to move out of the idea of a binary, it's really important to recognize that what we have here is perhaps the illusion of choice in the Uniparty, and you would be the first person to agree with that.
We're there now, but I'm just going to tell you that when we had Obama versus McCain, I remember, because I had time. I was watching everything that was happening very carefully. And I remember at the time of the primaries, before Obama won the primaries, it was him and Hillary, right? And I remember them all of a sudden being diverted to somewhere in Virginia or Fairfax or somewhere right in the vicinity of Washington, D.C. Why? Because representatives of the Bilderberg Group had to meet them. And they both flew in from wherever the heck it was. They were not in Washington. They were basically invited to come in to talk to those people.
Mm-hmm.
You know who those people are.
I do. But it's no different now. It's no different now.
Well, did somebody tell Mr. Trump that he has to come in and meet with those people and explain himself? No. They hate his guts. They don't want him.
Some of the people on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group are some of the biggest supporters of Trump's so-called A-team.
Well, here's my view. We're not going to have a French Revolution now. Okay? We're not going to have that, because that's not the way our country is designed. Okay? So we have a process. And I believe that people evolve. I really do. I don't penalize someone simply because they did something stupid before, and that can't be corrected. I believe people can be brought around. And I think there are people on that platform that he's created now, whatever you want to call it, that bench, who in public came around. And you could look at each one of them. Some of them came around real quick. Some of them, maybe they were there already, but let's look at Musk. Well, we don't have to say, let's look at him in particular. Him and Rogan and Tulsi. I mean, and RFK Jr., these are people who had to go through a process to finally get to the point where they endorsed him, or they went along and said, this is the way we have to go. Maybe he'd think about how who people supported them. They're thinking, you know, he's not perfect. We don't agree with him on everything, but, you know, we agree with him more than we agree with those other people. He's more in line with what, you know.
So the irony of that, Bill, the irony of that, I'm just going to throw it out there. And again, this is, you know, nobody can get into anybody's head specifically, but the irony of that statement is simply that they were all, and I think this ties in, or at least alludes to your understanding of the Uniparty, and that is that they were all blue before. All of them were blue, and now they're all red. And isn't that interesting? I mean, they all have something to gain from being that close to power. And if it flipped the other way, would they just flip back to blue?
I don't think so. I think that blue and red is irrelevant. I do. I think this whole thing about blue and red is like a cockamamie thing that I wish we could just throw it in the trash bin and forget about it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Why?
Is it just raw power grab? I mean, Musk has everything, and we've written about this at the Collapse Life Substack. You know, Musk has everything to gain from being that close to the levers of power. Everything. I mean, he runs all the most important elements of the technological society that we're trying to transform into, including space exploration, including all the communication. We know
and Musk, they're fighting him tooth and nail. They're trying to, you know, there are people who have been harassing him and you know, trying every which way to give him a hard time. And what have they achieved? Let me see their resume and let's look at his. Okay? You want to build up a country, you want to have a strong country, you want to be proud of your country. Let's look at everybody's resume. Let's look at theirs and then let's look at his. Who's got a stronger resume? Okay? You got a huge country. We're the most powerful country in the world, right? We're going to make a future for our people. Who are you going to choose? Those idiots, or are you going to take the genius and say, okay, let's run with him for a while, right? We haven't had that for a while. Let's get that. He's got the right stuff. Oh, he's got some other people with him who evidently have the right stuff too. Let's go with them. Instead of having this complete foolishness that we've had now, you know, for not just, you know, some people say, oh, well, look what happened with Obama, and then let's look at Bush, and they don't want to keep going back further. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm looking at this from my perspective. I'm saying, okay, when did my career start? And, you know, here I am now, and it's X number of years later. What did we achieve? You know, and it's sort of like my attitude is, where did we go wrong? What happened? Right? We had an opportunity and it got, you know, what happened? It got flushed down the toilet. How did we wind up where we are? Okay? I don't have anything good to say about the people who allowed that to happen or made it happen. People who have been active on Zero Hedge, or whatever you want to say, who have been, you know, proactive, audience participants, others who are leaning back now and don't want to get involved with it or watching it. But, you know, we were talking back around 2010, before, you know, we went down this last 10 years, which was terrible. We were discussing the whole Uniparty idea and how there is no real choice. Okay. And I have, if we don't have to do it right now, but I have pictures that I did back then that were expressing this idea, the illusion of choice. That's what the Uniparty is about. It's like, and frankly, I can't say that I'm a person who flipped, because I was always of the independent genre, you know. And I never said that. I never wanted to say I was blue. I certainly never wanted to say that I was red. Okay.
Right.
I was extremely unhappy about what happened with red in Iraq. You know, I remember, you know, when we had this the whole Chad thing and Al Gore losing to Bush, and everybody feeling that you know the office was stolen. And then we went into, you know, the whole everything. We don't have to go about through it now, but 9/11 and everything that happened, and all these wars and trillions of dollars spent on military and this and that and blah, blah, blah. You know, I hate Dick Cheney.
It's not hard.
That's me. My mom, who people on Zero Hedge know I always used to talk about before she went. If you said Dick Cheney, okay, this would like set off a conniption. I mean, a regular, it was like, it was like De Niro, fuck that. I mean, she didn't have that kind of,
It's my kind of lady.
But it was like, she would like, it was like, don't say Dick Cheney around her, please. Don't say that because it'll set her off on, and whoa, Dick Cheney, all of a sudden he's a Democrat. All the intel people who signed that letter, that at the time when we were all arguing about Hunter Biden's laptop, blah, 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 it's ridiculous. Right. They're not even, it's not even, subtle anymore. It's like they all came out in the open and showed themselves.
Yeah. And I'm not sure enough people were actually paying attention to that.
It's not a theory anymore. Yeah. It's
correct.
It's fact. It's verifiable fact. It's I don't know, only an idiot would argue about that fact. Now, okay?
Yep.
That's them. You call them what they want. The Uniparty, if you're only focused on who's in political office, the swamp, the
neocons.
The neocons are one element of it, right? The Beltway, they're right. All, it's like that whole, milieu. They're just like, that's it. That's it.
So Bill, what we have, I mean, I think that's the point that you're trying to make is
yes, we have this. It's like there are lots of people who went into the booth and made their choice,
right?
And went to the big, events at the the stadiums and everything else in the Madison Square Garden, and it's very exciting. I mean, there are people who know how to stage those kinds of things very well, but the people came, and I don't think they all. In fact, I know most of them never ever thought about what we're talking about now.
Yeah,
right.
They for them it's still a two-dimensional red and blue.
Right.
And I'm not surprised at that. Okay, I don't expect it's just like the financial crisis and everything. It takes people like us a while to get a grip on what it is that actually happened. How can the ordinary person on the street who just wants to worry about putting bread on the table, getting his kids educated, his or her kids educated, not getting them polluted by ideological subversion, right. at school and being told that they cannot help their kids, the whole thing, they just don't want that shit. And they just said, enough is enough. Okay. Yep. They're not going to get to this level of discussion that we're having now, but it's important now.
I'd really like that you identified the diversity of the camps that came to Trump, because I think what you said earlier,
Somalis, you got the Arabs, right. You got the Amish. When the Amish
think yes, out, right. I think that's the best, said, the best of America.
And the guy it gets better. The guy who organized getting them out. It's cool. The pictures of them with their little buggies with the, I don't know if that was made up or what, but it was cool to look at that because they definitely went. Yeah. The guy who organized them, he's gay. You know that?
Interesting.
Yeah. I forgot what the organization is.
He's that gay Amish?
No,
I don't think he's Amish. I think he's just from Pennsylvania.
He's just a guy with long hair who's he's gay.
Yeah.
He's a pretty cool looking guy, and he went and organized it. The diversity, and then of course, we don't have to go all the way down the list, but the Hispanics, and then the black males, and I mean, it goes on and on. They just got blown away by the wave.
I only rehash that because I think what you alluded to in the beginning of the conversation by mentioning that is that it is really the best part about America. It embodies the reason why America exists.
You know something? I've said it on my other interviews with you. I'm a New Yorker. I listen to people complaining about New York, and I don't argue when people complain because I understand what they're complaining about. But if you go to New York and figure out who are the New Yorkers, and of course, a lot of them get pushed out because everything is so expensive and they can't afford the rent and this and that. There are plenty of good New Yorkers, A, who I believe voted for Trump, and B, are good people and are not happy about, that little square area in Manhattan controls everything. Certainly if you go to Staten Island, they're really not happy, but there are people in Brooklyn. Well, there are parts of Brooklyn that seem like Silicon Valley, but there are other parts of Brooklyn which never make it into the news, where people, are a whole different, vintage. And, these people are not, all woke, liberal, whatever you want to call them. They're just working people.
That's right. Okay? So we go from the Trump wave to the hills of Hollywood and the last chopper out. I think this is genius.
Well,
this is brilliant.
I think so. When I did this picture, I just looked at the list. You can find the list very easily by doing a search of all the entertainment and music, all the West Coast actors and musical performers, what have you, that made threats about, well, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
I know everybody's saying, oh, go ahead, leave. No, I'm saying, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Don't tell me you're going to leave. Get the fuck out. I don't want to see you anymore. Okay? Yeah, you're not in my life anymore. So certainly, don't bother trying to say anything to me, because you should have just kept your mouth shut and I would have been happy,
Right.
But I watch you because you're a good actor or you're a good musical performer. Okay. I listen to your music. I have a very open mind about it. I don't do that because I need to have some idiot telling me things that, I don't agree with.
Right.
And then not only, it's not that I can't tolerate people who I disagree with. I'm happy that disagreeing with people is not, but using the position that I have put them in, okay, by being a consumer of what it is they're selling, and then turning it back on me and then making fun of other people, forget about me, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, no, that's not, that's not who you are, or, sports figures, whatever, it's not why you're so successful.
Right.
And then you brought it. So, okay, look, they're like humiliated now. They're humiliated. And I'm also aware of the fact that a lot of these people are basically strong-armed into doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because, they're in that industry. And if you look at that industry, it's very concentrated at the top, Mr. So-and-so from Disney or so-and-so from Comcast or so-and-so, this is his political leaning. And if he's going to get angry if you don't show up at the fundraiser that he's scheduled for next weekend for, Kamala Harris or blah, blah, blah. So it's like any other thing. You need to do whatever you need to do to keep your career going in the right direction. So, but even though I understand that, okay, by the way, I don't believe most of them. I just think they're just like nuts. Okay. Mm-hmm. But there certainly probably are others who are not able to just say, fuck that. I don't want anything to do with that. They're not all Clint Eastwood or whoever,
Yeah.
So it's easy to press, but what's her name? The singer, the female singer, Taylor Swift. She's obviously very, very successful. She is, I thought, until we really started rolling with the election this year, I thought she was kind of clever. The way she, was able to basically say screw you to the music industry, and she got all the rights to her songs, and she said it was very clever. Whether it was her or a lawyer, I don't know. She's able to basically, walk her own walk, and look at the walk that she took. there are some people who have the ability to just say no. If you don't like it, tough. My audience.
But then there's the other side to it as well, which is that Joe Rogan, for example, became somewhat of a kingmaker in this election. So, one of the candidates went on his show and one of them didn't. And that, I heard, was a deciding factor for many voters. And that's also just an indicator of kind of the clown world.
The Joe Rogan phenomena is like that's a whole other, we can talk about Rogan, but let's just finish up with the Hollywood people. So we can mention it now. I said to you in the exchange of messages earlier this week, we need to talk about Comcast. Mm-hmm. We need to look at, lo and behold, this morning, all the media companies that are worried because of all the money they take from the pharmaceutical industry. And, obviously we know what's going to happen to the pharmaceutical industry as a result of RFK Jr. being appointed. Once he gets appointed, of course, that's always a question. But you look at the list and you see Disney there and you see Comcast and you're wondering why, it's like we're talking about those Micah Brzezinski and what's the other guy's name?
Yeah, Joe Scarborough.
Scarborough.
Right. These people are just like the level, the IQ that we're looking at there is pitiful. Yeah. It's like Max Headroom is smarter than these people.
Oh, look at that. You cannot beat that for a first prize. Well, you can't, but I can.
Yeah, these are people who are programmed. That's the thing. Okay, someone's telling them what to say and what to do, yeah. And and they're not the only ones. The View, all of these, these. You want to talk about fake news or fake media? These people are all fake. Okay, they're paid to sit there and if they don't say what they're supposed to say, out, right? So you wonder, well, who's telling them to say what they're saying? Who's paying their salary? Of course, it's these people on this list. Okay, so you go with this list and you figure out why are they doing that? So my point with this is that, okay, look, the people on this list, and there are other angles to you can make a longer list, sure. But they're the ones who are paying all these celebrities, right? That's their, their whatever you want to call it. That's how they're winning.
Their bread and butter.
Yeah, that's their bread and butter. And they got to do what they're expected to do. And so the next part of the exercise, which is much more important than looking at these jerks and saying, oh, look at what a jerk that is saying, okay, who's paying for this? Mm-hmm. Okay. And who are they? And now I'm looking at Comcast. Okay. And frankly, it's not like I'm a genius and I know what every company, I said, all right, I'm going to go look at Comcast and see what's going on there. They deserve to be punished. Okay. It's not that I'm vindictive, but people who are consumers should be aware of who it is that they're giving their money to. And Comcast is in a lot of things. Okay. And if the way they make their money is by, fomenting all of this, it's not just the propaganda, it's all the negative consequences of all the fighting and everything else that goes on. And they're basically, propagating that by what they're doing with their medium. The medium is the message, right? So it's like that, and then they're getting enriched by that. They deserve to be punished. It's not just Disney, Universal and all this other stuff. You look at it and it's all TV and movies and entertainment and all this other stuff. And people, it's not just Disney. Somebody should look at them and say, okay, do I want to give them my money? Right? What what are they doing?
But Bill, the stakes here are so high. The amount of money so great that Do you expect that this is just going to happen smoothly and without any kind of...
No,
right,
I don't.
Right. But what does that look like? So to me, I look at this list, and then I look at another picture that you did recently, and I'm just going to pull it up here because I think this is where we end up. I think this is where we end up. I think the nuclear option has been pulled. It's not just Ukraine. I know this picture is about Ukraine, but I think we're looking at the nuclear option even within the kind of deep state milieu that you're referring to. I think nobody's going to go quietly into the night and go, oh, okay, well, you're going to pull my advertising dollars? Oh, okay, no problem. Farmers like, oh, you don't want to do vaccines? Oh, okay, no problem. Nobody's going to do that. Where do we land?
It's a fight.
Where do we land?
Oh, but you see, it's like any. I hate using this as the metaphor, war, but I guess it is a war. It's a different kind of war, and wars have, it's just like anything else. There are different battles that need to be fought. You have to have different people in different positions, different kinds of generals, and who are able to focus on one element of it, and then you need the leader at the top who's basically orchestrating everything. So it's like, it's any kind of, you can use the war analogy for all kinds of, any kind of project. You can say this is a battle, it's like, so it's a battle. Yeah, there's no doubt. It's just like, Sun Tzu, you got to look at everything as a battle. That's the metaphor. Yeah. It's no one said things were going to be easy.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing about the battle metaphor is there's lots of casualties along the way. The rules of engagement are different when you're in a war.
Yeah, but you see, I like to use chess.
Okay.
I like chess. And although in chess, the problem with the chess analogy is it's sort of like red versus blue because you got two players. But anyway, the way the game develops, there's three parts of the game. There's the opening phase of the game, where you're positioning pieces on the board and you're not necessarily exchanging, because people think, oh, you're grabbing. No, it's exchanging. Okay. This is the thing about chess. Each piece on the board has a relative value, which chess players call material. Yeah. And material is, there are these different pieces, and they, based upon their ability, what you can do with them, they have a different relative value. And you have two opponents on the board moving their pieces around, getting ready. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in this process of getting ready, you're trying to put your pieces in positions where they're going to have the maximum ability. Where some people would say to inflict damage to your opponent, or really maximum ability is when you get to the middle part of the game, which is the middle game, where it's like some people get really bored watching, a chess match, because it seems boring in the beginning because there are these moves and there's nothing exciting happening, and then all of a sudden everything gets built up in the center of the board because everybody's trying to get in the center of the board, where each piece, if you're on the side of the board, a piece is very limited in what, but if you dominate the center of the board, then you have the maximum ability to take your pieces and deploy them in ways that cause a lot of trouble for the other side. I think I don't want to stick my neck out too far, but I'm not trying to make predictions. But I think he has positioned himself, the big guy, Mr. Trump, has at this point with his team positioned themselves very well for the middle game. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happens in the middle game? Well, in the middle game, pieces get exchanged, because it's not like you just knock the other side. They're going to be casualties. So what happens in the middle game? You're basically exchanging pieces. All of a sudden, things are moving quick. People are moving, making fast moves, and then you start to see what's left and who basically. That's when you start waiting for one guy to basically take his king and knock it over and say, okay. Yeah, and walk away from the game. Or if it gets into a real long, drawn out thing, you get into the end game. Okay. The end game is sort of like, a boxing match or a wrestling, where in boxing, you're going to get the knockout, or in wrestling, you're going to pin the opponent down, or the judges are going to add up all the points and you're the winner. So we're at an early stage, if you look at that as the analogy. We're entering the middle game now because everybody's lining up. He's basically shown his pieces. He's made some moves, yeah. And now the other side is out there, and this is the frightening thing, what they're doing, because they're not sitting around doing nothing with their thumbs up their asses.
Right.
I think they were, they were ready for whatever the worst could be at the election phase. And they were able to get through, and the reason they were able to get through was the big wave, the great wave. Okay? And don't discount that great wave. That's the people. Okay? And I know you and Zara have sent me some messages, where you were worried about certain things. And I said, don't worry about that, because they're playing. Okay? They know how to play this time around. Yeah. And not only are they playing, but, Mr. Trump, President Trump, or whatever I'm going to call him, he's not fucking around this time. I truly believe. I've never had my ears shot off or shot, but we used to have this funny analogy about Lloyd Blankfein from Goldman Sachs, doing the God's work. He didn't have his ears shot off, right? I'm not saying that Trump thinks he's doing God's work, but there's definitely some, destiny. He's in his head. He's playing for keeps. Yeah, he's dead serious. He's not fucking around. And luckily, this time, okay, it's actually Act 3. Sorry, it's Act 3. He's got some pretty awesome people, on the same side. I used to listen to him and, laugh like everybody else, but also listen to what he was saying. And I would worry about it. I would say, okay, he's entertaining. He knows how to get rapport with people, and people like that. And he's worrying about people who were basically marginalized before, and he's the only one listening to their problems. But I'm not sure this guy really gets it, and maybe I'm still not sure he really gets it. But there are some people standing next to him who certainly do get it. Yeah, and so. What's going on now is, you can't just lump it all under deep state or neocon or this or that, because it's all a little bit of, there are different shades of what's going on and why. And yeah, there's some cross-pollination but it's not like, if you looked at the dynamics of what's going on in the Middle East, and then you looked at the dynamics of what's going on in Central Europe, there's some overlap, but it's not exact. Of course, there are some people who are making money on both, and they're going to only think one way. A lot of money, and you can't underestimate the importance of that in terms of what's happening. But then there's they just the two situations don't overlap. But then if you go to these other idiots who call themselves neocons, what is their agenda? Well, their first agenda is to put food on the table and, have appointments, because they're basically useless for anything else. Every time they try to do something, we fail miserably with it, and it's a disaster. They're basically people who are good at creating disasters. Maybe they make money off of those disasters. I don't know, disaster capitalism, what they call it. But I mean, they're just like, they don't impress me when it comes to what they accomplish. Okay, they don't. They have this agenda. okay? That there can be no competition with the United States and the rest of the world, which is very, very unrealistic as far as I'm concerned. It's becoming more and more unrealistic by their own doing. They're idiots. They created the situation that makes it more and more difficult for us to not have competition. But let's get back to that picture. There's some people who still can't believe what's going on. It's sort of like, Cinderella at the ball, right? Bill, what's going to happen? I'm still worried. And my response to that is have a little faith. Have a little faith. Not necessarily religious faith, but, don't be too negative. Think positive. But that doesn't mean that this isn't an important picture. Because there's some people who really are Dr. Strangelove. They think this is the thing that's happened in the last 4 years. I made this pretty early on in the Biden timeline, and for a long time, I had it as the banner under every post I made, right? Because this was my issue. This is my issue. By the way, you know who Jeffrey Sachs is? He spent, a great deal of time this year basically going around and telling people, I'm not happy. And the reason I'm not happy is because this is suddenly something that isn't just a figment of everybody's imagination, but is a real risk. And he has, as a result of his experience before, he knows the different players, maybe, I don't know, is he someone who knows Vladimir Putin? I don't know, probably, I don't know. Maybe he met him in the past or this, but he obviously knows the players and how they think and what they're capable of and why they're showing restraint or this or that and how they're reacting to provocations or whatever. And he's worried about this picture. And I agree. This is why I had this picture up, right after the pandemic was winding down and the Biden, early on in this current administration, I did this picture. I was worried about it. Saying how many times, it's sort of like, stop me if I'm going too far with this, but it's what if you, my computer is the timer. No, it's look, when it just so me, I get interested in a lot of different things. It's not like, but my thing is, I usually get interested enough in something that I need to basically understand how it works, and then satisfy myself that I'm not an idiot, so that I can have an intelligent. And nuclear war was a long time ago one of those things that I spent a lot of time thinking about. I thought we were past that the theory that there could be a conventional world war. Okay. I thought we finally realized that, we reached the stage where everybody realized that having a world war is not going to be a win. There's no conceivable way one party can win and the other party can lose. It's over. Again, if we get to this picture, we're fried. That's what Sachs is saying. I thought everybody realized that we were never going to go down that road ever again because that was behind us. And now we've got these crackpots who think that that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Or it's a viable idea, like Dr. Strangelove was saying. We can survive. There's survivability.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can actually go through this scenario and one side can win. No, one side does not win. The whole planet gets fried. Okay, that's what Sachs is really focused on. He's just saying he wants. When he gets into a discussion with Professor Mearsheimer, it becomes very elaborate discussion on the dynamics of what, the chessboard, what you will. But he, every time you're trying to pin him down and figure out what it is he's really getting at, he's getting at this. He's just saying, I just don't want this to happen.
William,
yeah.
William, you're getting at this, if I'm not mistaken. You're getting at, let's get these guys in ASAP.
Yeah, this is, Trump stone. I know that what's his name? The actor
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner did another movie. I watched the movie. If you want to look at historical accuracy, I think his movie about the gunfight at the OK Corral is going to be more accurate. Yeah. But this was a good movie too. Okay. Covered the same events, but more from an entertainment oriented, and I happen to like cowboy movies, so I like both those movies. But really, why did I pick this one? Because the image had everybody lined up like that, and I could change all their faces.
Yeah.
We all know there was a gunfight at the OK Corral. It's very interesting who the players were, and it's that, but it's got nothing to do with the history. A lot of people know there was a gunfight at the OK Corral, yeah, and it was more or less, although you can try to figure out, it wasn't completely the good guys versus the bad guys, but definitely there was one side that you're gonna say, yeah, those were the better guys, those were the good guys, okay?
Perfect.
And they were cleaning up town,
right.
Yeah, and they were basically, I had to add because there were only 4 in the original picture, but they're all, they're different people, and Doc Holliday is everybody's favorite. But look who's in this picture, and I think that's a very good, it's not just a meme that I did because it might look funny, it's because I think it's a good analogy, if they've all got their own style, and anybody who says that they're incompetent basically has nothing else that they're capable of saying. All they can say is they're incompetent, but they're not incompetent. They're very smart. Okay? They know, they may not have the, it's sort of like this thing that goes on in Washington where you say you're incompetent because you were never in there with the levers yourself. We never let you in there with the levers, and of course, yeah, that's a sort of self-perpetuating, yeah, it's like, unless you're somebody who's approved and in there with the levers and you're watching them, then you can't get in there, and that's not the way you have change, is it? And if you look at this picture, this is what the picture is. The picture is change. I see change in that picture. Yeah?
Yep.
Maybe not complete change, because you can't have complete change. You need to have an adjustment, of course, with respect to some things. And in other areas, you really need to have a change. You need to clean house. You need to get somebody in there who's not going to show any mercy. And that's Getz, right?
Yep.
Right? Or that's RFK. Yeah.
I think the danger is looking at a picture like this and thinking that there are heroes coming to save the people of the village. I think we all need to feel very strongly that there are no heroes coming to save us. There's the bad guys and the slightly better other guys, but there's no heroes swooping in, right?
But this is the closest we're ever going to get to the heroes scenario, and we need the heroes scenario now, because we've been, I think I mentioned, I didn't mention it on the first 2 discussions we had, but last Christmas I was in Laos, and you know how everybody was feeling at the end of last year. I'm not a person who ever feels hopeless, but it's sort of like, I wasn't very happy. Let's put it that way. And I had a great time. My wife and I, we had a great time in Laos, because people in Laos are lovely people, really. It's like Vietnam. They love Americans, and it's not just the money. Maybe it is just the money. I don't know. I don't think so. It's sort of, a lot of people think, well, if you go there and you're American, you're going to be exposed to animosity. It's amazing how people, and there's generation, as time goes, of course, generationally, whatever animosity there was. But in my case, I went to Vietnam for the first time like 25 years ago, and they at that point, they were needling me about Americans and how they beat the Americans. And I would say, yeah, you beat us. Good for you. We deserved it, you know? So anyway, last year I'm in Laos, and I'm, you know, it's sort of like highlighting for me that place is a wreck. It's not that you get there and it's a wreck. It's like the country really is scarred.
Yeah.
Who did that? Who did that? We did. We did. You know, of course, you can go to Cambodia or you can go to Vietnam and you can go to a place where you will feel the same, you know. So like you go to Cambodia and everybody wants to blame Pol Pot. And then you say, well, you can't just blame Pol Pot. You got to understand, how did Pol Pot wind up being who Pol Pot was in that position? What happened to, you know, what did we do to Norodom Sihanouk, you know, who wanted to be basically, non-aligned, right? This was a sin back then. You couldn't be neutral. You had to choose one. We still think that way now. The people still think you're either with them or you're either with us or you're against us. Right. Yeah. You know, you can't be. If that's one of the things that everybody else is saying, now screw that. We've had enough of that. Right. I wanted to go up. You can't go up to the Ho Chi Minh Trail without. It's really difficult to go up there. It's sort of like, you got to go up there in a Jeep or this or that or helicopter. I don't know. The people who were there involved with the military or whatever, they want to go because they want to go see it, but it's not really a touristic thing. But because when you get there, it's also dangerous. You can't go up into the bush because there's all these cluster bombs all over the place. And here's my point. Every year, thousands of people still get maimed.
Right.
Because the ordnance is still active in these bombs.
Yeah.
And, you know, I went, you know, and there's things where that they take you to go and look at, like waterfalls and beautiful places. And I said to the guy that I hired, you know, I want to go up. I want to go see the Hmong people. Who basically, they're basically, you know, mountain people.
Correct.
He says, yeah, you really want to do that? Yeah, I really want to do that. I said, that's on the top of my list. You know, we'll go see the waterfall later. I want to go there. All right, yeah, let's go there. We get to this village, and there's no adults as far as I can see. You know, I'm using myself as the adult. They're all kids. And now when I say kids, I mean like 14, 13, 12, 11. I'm thinking to myself, and we're walking around, and the kids are all smiling, and of course they all have their hands out. They want to have candy, or they want to have change, or this or that, you know. And so I said to the guy, I said, "Where's mom and dad?" You know. I said, "You see that kid over there?" And it was like a kid who's like 14 years old. I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, you know who's standing next to him?" I said, "Well, yeah, another kid, but she looks like she's about 12." He says, "That's his wife."
No.
Oh, gosh.
And I said, you know, because he was dead serious. I said, well, and he said, and you see those little kids over there? I said, yeah. He says, those are his kids. So I'm looking at these kids and I'm listening to what he's saying. And then I'm looking at him. And then I'm thinking of him a completely different way. I'm saying, he's dad. He's 14 years old and he's dad. Okay? And I'm looking at his facial expressions. Okay, I'm a dad. If someone says he's the dad, and I'm looking at him and I'm saying, holy shit, he's the dad. You know, what's going on here? Okay, so, you know, was it like that before we had everything that went on in that part of the world with all the bombing and everything? I don't know. I think they had elderly people at one point. But the point is that now, if you happen to be the fluke that reaches age 50 in that country, you're a fluke. Okay? How did that happen? Well, I can just tell you the secret war, that was based there in Laos, you know, and lots of people got bombed and this and that, and the economy got destroyed and and so really the bottom line is it's just like underscored to me again. what happens when we go around doing what we do.
Mm.
Yeah. It's not just lecturing people we shouldn't be lecturing because we're not a good example anymore. It's because there are real consequences, okay, to what it is that we wind up doing, which, if, for one reason or another, seems to always wind up involving bombs and bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very upsetting. So I was there Christmas. I told you I was able to quietly myself host the demise of Henry Kissinger, who died last November, right? Okay. Fuck you, Henry. I'm here, you know. So now here we are, and those same people who, think that way are desperate. They're desperate because suddenly Tulsi, okay, is going to be someone who's in a position that they have to answer to.
Yeah.
They're in a panic. They don't know what she's going to, and it's not like they can say she doesn't know what she's talking about, because she's certainly, I have to tell you, a lot of those, she's more qualified than a lot of those people, because, they're a lot of them are just sitting there looking at computer screens all day long with desk jobs, and she's someone who was exposed to these kinds of consequences of how these whatever you want to call them, overseas adventures that we wind up in have consequences. And there are a lot of people who suffer because other people who never served have no business basically, making decisions like that. Okay. She's someone who understands that. Okay. And they basically hated her before. They insulted her. Hillary insulted her, and they really, and now all of a sudden the word that comes to mind is blowback.
Yes. Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard is blowback. Yeah.
Since it is Thanksgiving, I want to close by just asking you, what are you thankful for?
Well, this is a loaded question, For me, it's sort of like I had a very serious operation earlier this year, so I'm just happy to be alive.
Yeah.
What's happened in the last month is just icing on the cake.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, why don't we do this? Why don't we stop for now and check back in January, and
let's see where we wind up.
Well, since it is the time of year to give thanks, I just wanted to take a moment to say from everyone here at Collapse Life that we have so much to be grateful for. For one thing, we are living in a time and a place when we are able to explore all kinds of ideas from all kinds of angles, and we are so grateful for that. We're so grateful for guests like Bill and for every single person who has come on this past year to share their time, to share their thoughts and their perspectives. And most of all, we are just so grateful and thankful to all of our viewers and our readers like you who spend your time watching and participating and giving us feedback. So we ask that you do give us your comments. There's lots to chew on in this discussion, and we would love to hear what you have to say. Drop your comments. Also, hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel so that you can be part of a growing community of curious minds. You can also find us on Substack at collapselife.substack.com and on Twitter at collapse_life. We'll see you back here next week for another wonderful guest. Until then, keep your chin up. It's only Collapse. See you soon.